You're rushing back from school on a weekday, and you instantly go to your room where your laptop is. You flip open the laptop and type the words FRIV.com. You see a bunch of little icons, all with different thumbnails, and you begin exploring each one of them. They all offer you something that can be great through a Flash game. If you're wondering what a Flash game is, I hope you all do know because it makes me feel slightly old if you don't. It is essentially a browser-based game that uses Adobe Flash Player technology. The Adobe Flash Player is dead, unfortunately, RIP, but this was a massive part of my childhood. There were so many games that I've played on this website and I adore it so much. It's mainly because of nostalgia reasons, but isn't everything great nostalgic? And I would remember spending so much time playing all these random little games and spending hours and hours playing them. I don't remember how I got introduced to this website, to be honest. It could have been someone from school, or I just searched free online game on Google and it would have just came up with FRIV.com. It's been around for many years. I think it started being a thing in the 2010s. The old FRIV looks nothing like the new FRIV or the modern day FRIV. It tries to keep up with everything that's going on nowadays, and I feel like it just doesn't hit the same. And the main target audience for Flash games is usually kids, and majority of kids these days don't really play Flash games, unless I'm wrong, but majority of them just play other games. It's been many years since I've played these games, around a decade I think, so I just wanted to play these games again. And the way I picked all these games was just through the thumbnail. So the little thumbnail on the main screen, that's how I chose all these games that you'll see later. And when I played more of the game, I recognized each of the level, and it was nice to go down memory lane. Well, I want to rate all of these games that I recognize from my childhood, and the way I'm going to do that, the three main criteria will be the plot, gameplay, and art style. I feel like this is a fair way to rate all of these games, as a lot of them are really short games, and the people who make these games, they just do it for fun, and it's just something they do and as a hobby. So we might as well start off with a bang with one of my favourite Flash games, Empires of Arkeia. As mentioned, this is a game that I fondly remember. I adored this game when I was younger. I played it for hours. And if you don't know what this game is, it is a strategy game. Kind of the same gameplay as Plants vs Zombies. You have 5 different lanes where you place down units and then they move to the right of the screen. And the goal is to beat the army that resides in each place by reducing the base camp's health to 0. And then eliminating all the remaining troops. And this is done by breaking through enemy lines, crossing the opposite edge. This game was released in 2012, developed by Overworld Labs and published by GameArk. GameArk, they have published around 30 other Flash games that were released on Newgrounds, so they kind of knew what they were doing. Plot-wise, the game had a really interesting setting. Well, to me at least. The game is set in a fictional land called Empires of Arkeia, which is a surprise. This empire is currently in peril from multiple different factions that have invaded the islands in the empire. You work with General Deimos, who's a figurehead in the army, where you first set in Sunfall Isle. The first set of enemies are pirates, raiders, bad people, where you must help the people of Sunfall by defeating them. With placing down your units, they each cost a certain amount of gold, which you gain slowly over the length of the battle. These units have different class types, infantry, cavalry, constructs, and many more, where they can have a light and heavy version of these as well. The units each have a type of weapon to attack with, and this leads to a dynamic where all these units have different strengths and weaknesses. I think this is the part that got me hooked when I was a kid. Well, with strategy games in general, playing this rock, paper, scissors like game where you must select the right units for the army and when to place the units down. Back to the battle though, I easily defeated the raiders and pirates on Sunfall Isle. We then progressed to Torania, where the islands were taken over by some green orcs. There was a castle as well called Lokar Castle. I probably said that wrong. Located on the island, where you first meet some undead units, led by Gaumora. These lot were easily defeated by my army, including the orcs as well. I really needed a challenge, and so far, the armies that were being thrown at me, they were easy. The next island was Mistmorn, and it's overran by fishmen. Not fishermen, actual fishmen. This blue lot had no cavalry troops, but they were incredibly fast to make up for it. Not only that, they had health regeneration, which is some bullshit, I must say, and when I was talking about it being quite easy, let's just say my army struggled quite a lot with defeating the fishmen on this island. The real MVPs from the army were the skirmishers. These lot had spears and they were so essential to defeating everything. You can have 2 at the same time for only 10 gold each, which is such a bargain. With the strength on the skirmishers, we managed to fend off all the fishmen off Mistmorn. Well, that was part of my journey, but if you carry on playing the game, you continue hopping from different islands in the Empire, fighting different armies, and progressing throughout the game. There are more enemy types and the levels get harder. I won't spoil any more things in the game. Go have a look for yourself because this game is a great game, and especially if you love strategy games a lot and want a short 3 to 4 hour game, then you must play this. One negative thing I will say about the game though is that there's only one song that repeats throughout the whole game, which gets very repetitive. But you can turn this off in the game. There's an option to turn off music. Overall, this game was so fun and I really enjoyed revisiting it as well, and I just love it. It may not be the most polished thing, like balancing wise with all the units, but for a flash game, this was great. 9 out of 10. The Stickman era. This was so prevalent in a lot of media in like the mid 2000s to 2010s. It was in games, animations, and every kid, including myself at the time, was enjoying the shit out of it. This game was released in 2007 by a publisher called DX Interactive, Damien Clark. I could only find one other game they released, which was Missile Game 3D, another Flash game. So the developer is a bit of a mystery. I don't even know where Electricman 1 is, but we have the second game. So this game was a beat 'em up style game, obviously in the Stickman style. You compete in the Tournament of Vortigern, where you must fight other teams of varying numbers to determine who the most powerful being in the Stickman universe are. I remember this being a really fun game when I was a kid, and as I said earlier, this was a time where I enjoyed anything Stickman related. I remember being obsessed with watching Alan Becker's Stickman animations on YouTube, and also watching people play the Henry Stickman Flash game. I just think the simplicity of the look of the Stickman style was so appealing to me, and the fact that it was so simple and so easy to convey how each character moved. It showed a lot of personality. In the game, you can punch, kick, and grab, and there are slow motion versions of these attacks too. These slow motion attacks can only be accessed once you build up a certain amount of battery points, and this is done by hitting enemies with regular attacks, and this is all displayed on the top left of the screen. And you may ask, why bother using slow motion attacks? Well, these attacks were much stronger, and they were so much cooler as well. The animations just blew my mind as a kid, and I loved it. The regular grab move is quite funny as well, where your character launches the opponent all the way up off screen and then falls back down. And no, like, this is literally the move. I couldn't believe when I first used this because I just remember bursting out laughing because I had no idea what the animation would be. And yes, the falling opponent can land on top of others, including yourself. All the opponents you face, you fight them in their own arenas, which all have their own unique design. The teams you face are the replicants. These are just regular old grunts in some form of armor. The frozen. These are like the replicants but thrive in the cold, where their armor reflects this visually. The Syrian Guard. The future tech guards who have more advanced armor. The Toxic 10. This team thrives using deadly gas, even wearing gas masks when fighting. The Dozermen, construction workers turned to fighting machines. The Pyromaniacs. These fighters turn to spiritual methods that incorporate fire to strengthen themselves. The Plague. They once were doctors working with corpses, turn into heartless fighters. The Blind. Martial artists in the belief sight is not needed, enhancing their own senses. The Tech Team. Using high-tech armor, including visors that blind opponents. And lastly, Death. The current champions who take pride in fighting to the very end. The game itself, I actually breezed through all these teams quite easily by mainly spamming kicks, where only a couple times I had to restart the level. This game has such a great soundtrack. The music playing in the background when you're fighting each team, it's great. And all the teams have different soundtracks too, so it leans more into the atmosphere of each team. My only supposedly bad notes I had about this game was that the soundtrack wouldn't play throughout the whole fight, but I wasn't sure this was because of the emulator or not. Another point, you had to fight the same team again sometimes, but they just had more enemies or health, which it would have been nice to see more variation. And as I mentioned earlier, the game itself was quite easy, but I played on normal difficulty. So if you want to play this game, I'd recommend playing on hard. This game was fun though, lots of kicking, 8 out of 10. We've had 2 bangers so far, so let's see what the next game is. This game was a very interesting one, and I don't remember why I enjoyed it so much. I just remember the little thumbnail on the main screen, and I don't even have an interest in playing that much. And this game doesn't have that much information either. I found that it was released in 2009 by a publisher called Free Online Games, and they had a bunch of different Flash games on their website, around 230. The main premise of this game is that you're a pilot of a Tu-95. Trust me, I don't know what it is either, and I didn't know what it was when I was younger. It's just some big fancy plane. And with this plane, you'd have to fly from one airport to another. That's the goal for each level. Sometimes you have to complete other missions while flying, like fueling other planes or flying through harsh conditions. The game has a very heavy Soviet vibe to it, if you couldn't tell, with the graphics and everything. As I mentioned earlier, I only remembered this game because of the icon on the homepage. I didn't remember any of the gameplay, and once I started playing this game, I realized why I don't remember it. It's because I couldn't for the life of me fly this thing. I kept crashing over and over again. I think I was, and still am, the worst pilot because the amount of debris these airports have seen could have filled up the whole of Greenland. Then it hit me. I kept on holding on the left arrow key while holding on to the up arrow key at the same time. So this entire time, even when I was a kid, I kept rotating the plane to the left to the point where it couldn't move upwards anymore because the plane was trying to be vertical from me controlling it. And I only had this revelation when I looked at the controls again, and this was bearing in mind an hour of me playing. Yeah, you could say I'm a bit stupid for this one, and I entirely take the blame for that. But I slowly got the hang of this, and then I tried landing the plane at the other airport. This happened so many times, and the 2 hours I played this game, I only landed the plane once. Call it a skill issue all you want, but I still think the plane controls like a brick and is sensitive like glass. Safe to say I gave up with this game. The theme is cool, I guess, and the repetitive music drove me crazy, probably relating to me restarting a level repeatedly. 3 out of 10. No, this isn't the board game or related to it at all. This Flash game was released in 2010, and the only thing I could find about it was there was a producer for this game called NTT Toon, and there really isn't a plot for this game, as it's a very short game. My guess about the developer though is that they're Vietnamese, as before the main menu there is an option to pick Vietnamese as your language, but that's just my theory. You get to pick 1 of 4 characters. These characters include Swordsman, Spearman, Bowgirl, and Gunslinger. Very creative names, I know, and these all have different stats, so you can lean into playing a certain type of style. This game is a mix of rock, paper, scissors with RPG elements. It is a turn-based where whoever wins the rock, paper, scissors gets to use their turn. Whether this was to use an item or attack, if you don't win the rock, paper, scissors, you won't get your turn. This is a fun little concept and a bit of a twist to the turn-based RPG system. There's even a shop at the end of each turn where you can buy items that can help you. With the game itself, it's a bit confusing as there's nothing really explaining how the gameplay works. A lot of this is just my intuition and guesswork when I was playing through the game. I know there's a health system and a damage system and what I presume to be a mana system. And with this mana you can use different types of attacks, and I don't really know how this mana is charged. I don't know if it's overtime or you have to use normal attacks, but it's one or the other probably. The character I chose was the Gunslinger, and my reason? He's got guns. I mean, what else is there to say? They just look cool. And you have to defeat all 4 of the heroes you could have picked, and my first opponent was the Swordsman, who was quite easy to defeat, as I'm guessing he's a character to get you used to the game. The next opponent was the Spearman, who was quite easy to defeat too. Who am I kidding, they were all really easy to defeat. Gunslinger did put up a fight though, I'll give him that, as he was quite close to defeating me. But then suddenly you have one final opponent, which caught me off guard. Their name? Holy Light.
I already know what you're going to pick. You're going to go rock, aren't you? I'm gonna go scissors. Your move, buddy.
And then they defeated me multiple times. I never was strong enough. 6 out of 10. All these Flash games are great in their own little way, and I would love to do another video like this because there are so many more that I've missed out on, as the video would be so long. So let me know if you want to see that. Nostalgia may be blinding me with all these games, but I couldn't care less.